Good day, one and all. You are watching Frivolous Gravitas with myself, Christopher Driver, and my amiable and I always do this when I'm trying to introduce you. Inimitable co-host, Jordan Roy. To step back from our recent episodes, where we delved a bit into the seriousness of modern errors and conflicts with drugs, industrial politics, and the license agreements, etc., etc. Today we're going to dial down the angsty rhetoric just a bit and take a lighter look at the humor in misfortune. So today we cover why it's important to not take life too seriously. With that, I'll let Jordan take the lead, and we'll see where he has to take us.
Yeah, so we're going to be looking at humor from a very clinical and serious approach. We're going to be defining humor in all of its forms, and then we will break down every form of humor and completely destroy any joy you may have in your life for the next hour and a half. So what we're really going to be doing is making a case that you shouldn't take life seriously at all. Now, that's not to say that there aren't serious moments in life. I'd like to get into later the time and place, which is my concept of when to be serious and when not to be. And you should be able to tell that through education, just your general upbringing, when to do something and when not to. But the thing is that you don't need to live a serious life. You don't need to be, 100% stoic all the time. Even the Stoics told jokes. You don't need to approach everything as a dire problem, because life, it seems, doesn't actually work like that. You're going to get an aneurysm or an ulcer. But what it seems like to me is more, and I've been thinking about this for the last couple of days, is, let me put my notes in a place I can actually read them, is that life is absolutely and utterly absurd. Kind of in the in the Albert Camus sense, where you have this just absurd sense of the way the world works. But unlike Camus, who is very, life is absurd and it's mocking us. Yes, it is, but we can mock it right back. And that's kind of where I'm coming from here, is that life isn't just not serious. It's not meant to be taken seriously. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not, I follow Stoicism very closely, but I also follow the Epicureans very closely, but I also follow a lot of other stuff very closely, and they're all contradictory, because there's truth in all of them. Now, today's truth we're going to be looking at is that of the fact that life is something you can laugh at. Yours, other people's, everything in existence, reality, because it's almost designed like that. Now, up front, I've been reading a lot of Alan Watts lately, so as much as you can read him, he did most of his stuff on audio, because he was like a broadcaster at Berkeley. So he's just like goes on kind of like we are here podcasting, thinking about like, what does it mean to be alive? I'm going to play some music now. He
and
said,
it's neat though, because Alan Watts is the way he pushes his points of view are always in a jovial type sense, because he understands that learning and education are best done through humor as well. So I think we'll probably get into like the effects of our lives and how humor impacts the way not only we learn and grow as people, but also our affect on life. So how we change our environment and influence other people is also affected by our moods and dispositions, which we'll probably talk about, right?
Yeah, because one of the things about us is that we do have a tendency to laugh at things, and we don't really think about it. But in our society nowadays, and a lot of societies over the course of human history, there's been this trend towards, stand at attention. Left, right, pull the button, pull the levers, don't think about it, just do your job, and stop talking while you're at work. No, like you should be paying attention to pulling the levers instead of, talking with your friends while you're doing it, productivity. And then, why have you memorized the table yet? Or Why you memorize these facts? You need this so you can go be serious in another position. And then, you get into your field, and then you go be serious there, and then you get a promotion. You're serious, making sure other people are serious. And it's a waste of everyone's time. Why are you doing the work in the first place? Like, everybody's working for the weekend, right? Well, that's not a let's go play thing. That's like, we're working so we can live, not to survive. So you have to incorporate that. You have to realize that you are working and you're serious in moments because you want to have joy in other moments. But the thing is that if you get good at it, you can have joy in those moments of work as well. There will be serious moments in your life, but you can bring joy into the other one. When you realize that we're not built to be serious creatures, we're built to tell jokes, and we're built to engage in humor. It shows up in every religion, some more than others, and some have it, Watts gets into this a lot. But what happens, and Watts describes that life is a very musical thing. It's like a dance that we're going through from beginning to end. We're all living in this moment that we're living in right now. And life isn't a series of rubber stamps. He describes it as going, you're going to a dance, and you're not trying to end up on one point of the dance floor. The goal isn't to get to the other point of the dance floor. The goal is to dance, and you'll just end up at that point at the end of the dance. You don't sing, as he says, the last note of a song. You sing the song. You're singing the song. And this is kind of, we've get into this before. We've call it the Zen. We call it the Tao. We call it the Logos. We call it, depending on where you are, it's always there. You need to swim with the current, but not just swim. You need to dance your way through, because otherwise you're not going to enjoy your time in the river. Now, this isn't just about enjoying. This isn't just some Epicurean thing. This is living with regard to how we are intended to live. We're intended to enjoy our life, not by some, prime mover or anything. This is just kind of where we're built. We tell jokes. Other animals also tell, enjoy humor. You see monkeys, and we've seen humor in dogs and dolphins and all kinds of, we've seen horses. You see, they see their favorite jockey or something, and they run up to them and they're happy, and animals laugh. It's this chemical response that we have now.
And we all recognize it too. I think that's what's really neat. Like, us as humans being a completely different species, we recognize play in dogs. And a dog will look at us and know that we're ready to play too. Like, that to me is fascinating, that a dog knows just by your body language, even though you're a different species and you speak different languages. The dog knows you want to play.
Well, and that's the thing, the dog, and this is kind of when you get into that Buddhist and Zen thing, where they're not being dogs and cats and horses and dolphins by accident. They are doing it by accident. Whereas humans have this peculiar thing where we can do things intentionally, and we have, and the thing that this sapience that we have is that we can't. There's those two sides to humanity. We can try to do things, and we can try to do things by accident and spontaneous, but we can't, because the moment you try and do something spontaneous, you're not doing it spontaneously. So these dogs and cats and horses and all these animals are just being what they are. They're dancing their life. They're going through it. And as humans, we can say, okay, I'm not going to dance today. I'm going to get work done, which is very responsible. It's good. That's a good thing to do, but it's not a good thing to do with your entire life, because people will respect someone who can be, on a very practical level. I'm going to work hard, and then later that night, everyone goes to the bar or something, and they see you can be a fish in water there just as well as you are in a mountain of paperwork. And then, this is a versatile person. I can trust this person. He dances his life well. Now, when I bring this back to humor, you have not just dancing, but humor is not just a feeling. Let's see, how do I want to take this? It's part of how we interact with ourselves, but also interact with the world. And so we're going through this life, and the life in itself, like I said, is inherently absurd. We're born this amalgam of molecules. If you want to get into why it's absurd, this would be good. But and then we feel all this pain for stupid reasons, and we age and we crack and we crank, and everything is an ironic mess as to just the basic existence of what we are. And then we build these, ramshackle structures around us that, help, but in the fact that they're helping, they still kind of, it's like, oh, look, I built a chair to help me. Oh no, now I've got, my legs aren't as effective as they were before. And now I have a leg problem. Or look, we built everything comes with a, sadistic backslap on us. And that's,
especially if it's the leg that's or the chair that's causing your leg problem.
Yeah, it's the thing.
Usually that's the issue.
Yeah.
We'll build a chair to fix our sore legs from standing, and then the chair will cause us unable to stand or without pain. Kind of thing.
We invent shoes so we don't have to live like hobbits, and then all of a sudden we have trench foot and fungal infections on. Yeah, and it's like. So we're better off, but and this is, it's like life is a tragedy, that's kind of like, I don't know, go watch Jordan B. Peterson or something. He'll tell you how to deal with that. But that's not really what I'm interested in. Is the tragedy in itself is hilarious in every sense of the way. And this is exemplified by the fact that you see soldiers, paramedics, firemen, anyone, nurses, doctors, go read Samuel Shem's House of God. You'll see exactly what I mean.
Paramedics especially.
Yeah. And it's like there's this, and right now you see that there's attempts by the military and the police forces and the paramedics to stop them being like this. But we need them to have that, mocking disdain for the tragedy that there is unfolding in front of them, like daily, that we're forcing them through. And now we want them to be like perfect gentlemen and gentlewomen while they're, trying to cinch our artery. No.
And it's like a psychological coping mechanism, right? For them to function at their job effectively, they need to be functioning psychologically. And enduring trauma after trauma, day after day, as a form of occupation is a really bad way of going about preventing trauma in people, Like if cops weren't able to laugh or joke about the situations that are serious that they find themselves in, how could they possibly deal with repeatedly exposing themselves to those situations? Like, I don't think a human being could do it unless they were psychopathic, in which case they'd be terrible policemen to begin with.
Right. And that's exactly right. Like you can't have a psychopathic, because like someone who's just approaches, you go into battle. It's like, we need to take that fort. All right, I'll do it. It's like, oh geez. Okay.
Yikes, Kevin, that came out of a dark place.
It's like, you want me to take that hill? It's like, you see like there's that one scene in Game of Thrones where it's just like, it's an impenetrable fortress, and that one guy's just like, give me 10 men and I'll impregnate that bitch. It's like this is that type of humor, because you're facing this tragic situation, which is absolutely absurd. You are being put into a situation. That house in the slum is on fire. You know, the one that, 3 firemen have been shot trying to get to? Yeah, that one. Go put the fire out there. And you're just like, oh boy, here I go again. And the jokes start, because that's how you deal with it. Now, this is a good approach to life. It lets off steam. It's crass. It's insulting. It's not politically correct. But none of those things matter anyways. What matters is, how do you get from one point to another? How are you going to do the dance? Now, sometimes the dance is a dance. Sometimes you're at the bar with your friends. Sometimes you're on the dance floor. Sometimes you are manning machine gun. How are you dancing? Are you dancing with, oh, everything's terrible? Or are you trying to make the best of it? And when we hamstring ourselves by taking everything too seriously and saying everything is grave, the only thing that matters is my future and my retirement and this and that. No. That does matter to some extent, but what matters really is where you're living. And the only place you're living is in the moment you're living right now. And this is kind of a very Epicurean perspective, but really the past has already happened. There's nothing you can do about that. The future, well, yes, you do have to be responsible in order for, a better future for yourself. But you're not going to be very useful in that future if you don't deal with the tragedy that's happening now. And it's not just the tragedy. It's, even if good things are happening, good and bad, you have to be able to laugh at what's happening, because it's absurd, because life is absurd. But in addition to that, you are absurd. You're this absurd amalgam of contradictions. I told you, I read both, the Stoics and Lucretius, and then I find meaning in both. I read, I follow science, and then I read the Bible, and then, I find, like, I'm not a Christian, but I've read St. Thomas Aquinas 3 times. Why? Because I'm absurd. Everything about my existence is absurd, and that's worth laughing at. Now, this is kind of where I want to bring Alan Watts into this, and because he notes the element of honesty in this. He says, okay, we all have to be honest, right? We can try and be honest. And he says, kind of like, you could be good at this. And then eventually you say, enough of that. That's stupid. Honesty it's a great thing, and you need to be honest with yourself. But really, honesty it's only one tool. And you need to disregard it, because we have to realize that we're all deceiving each other, and that's not a bad thing. And he uses the metaphor of the flower. The flower is attracting the bee. He says, look how pretty I am. Look how much nectar I've got. Come and get me. Come and bring my pollen to another flower, please. It's deceiving. But what happens is, the deception is the seriousness. I am this serious creature, leader of men, or I'm an actor on the stage. But the thing is that these people are people. You see them on the stage. You see your politician up front, and they have this big facade. And that is dishonest. They're telling you one thing, and they see that the honesty is of no use to them. So they become the persona of the politician, of the actor, of the actress, of the waiter, the waitress. Your waiter and waitresses are lying to you. They are not happy to see you. Talk to them.
That's a fact.
That is a fact. Talk to them as people, and they will talk to you as people, and you will have a better time, and they will have a better day.
There is nothing funnier, by the way, than watching a guy hit on a waitress who's totally leading him on just for the tip.
Yeah.
Like, the absurdity of that communication alone, like, everything he says is pointless. All the body language is pointless. All of the laughter is fake. Like, the whole thing is just funny to watch, because it's absurd, like you said.
One thing you can do is one thing I do is I like doing is, and if you've ever been out to lunch with me, you probably noticed this, is a waitress will come up and I'll say something completely apropos of nothing, or I'll make fun of their question, or I'll, what do you want to eat? Food. Oh, Jesus Christ, I've got a joker here. And I'll be like, then I'll show that I'm, the twinkle in my eye or something, as one would say, that I'm not being deprecating. I'm showing you that this isn't a Like, yes, you're serving me, but I'm not gonna be a serious asshole on you.
You're not the warden that's like commanding her in slavery and telling her or him, whatever.
I'm expecting you to give as good as like, or more than I'm giving, because I am not taking, I'm taking them seriously as a person, but I'm not taking the situation itself seriously, because they're bringing me food and I need someone to bring me my food. I don't know the line, chef.
But you're like deformalizing it, so she doesn't have to, or he doesn't have to, go to work and just be strict and focused and whatever. You can BS a bit, and it's just looser. It's easier. It makes people
and this
happier.
is why with restaurants I can't stand like a lot of them. And the best one I had was one that just let me do, just let me do my thing and I'll make you money. And they gave me a script and say, here, be this, or Starbucks saying, be genuine according to the script. It's like, so you want me to take this? So this is like, no, your dance is not allowed. You have to use our dance. And it's dishonest, but it's not just dishonest. It's maliciously dishonest. You're denying the other person's dance. And so you want this corporate dance, which is, it's instead of a, going with the flow, doing what the music is telling you to do, you have to enforce, you have to just go through the motions in a serious manner. Smiling like this. Look, I don't mean to smile, but I can do it. And it's tragic. And then what happens when you see someone going through those motions like we just did? We laugh at them, because it's just like, hi, welcome to Starbucks. I'm so glad to see you. It's like, gee, did you see that guy? What a brainwashed idiot.
Yeah, and then Genuine looks so genuinely disingenuous.
Right, so everyone else...
That's funny.
Everyone outside is laughing at them. Like, does the Walmart greeter actually want to be there? No, which is why it's funny. And they're smiling, but there's no soul there, so it's inherently funny. And this is where we come to the absurdity again, because Watts really put it in a way that I really liked. You have like essentially two types of humor, and we're going to make a definition now, because he identified two. You have malicious humor, where people laugh at other people, and we can get into this, but essentially that is coming from a place of insecurity, or a place of, you don't like such and such politicians, so every joke will just be a jab at them, and it's just like, okay, cool, but those are cheap and they get old real fast. It's like, oh look, it's like just like the Bloc Québécois, ha ha ha. It's like, geez, that was...
But it's borderline sadistic when it gets malicious like that, right? Like, it's only funny because you enjoy the harm of someone else. Like, it's not inherently or intrinsically funny.
It comes from a wish that person would be, or that group, or that this or that would be, you'd rather them off dead. And that's like, you can laugh at that, but like, it's not a pleasant laughter. You're coming from a place of hatred for others, which means you probably have hatred for yourself and are not enjoying your own dance, or you can't figure out how to dance properly. Now, he identifies another one where we're laughing at ourselves. And this is a more honest laughter, because he sees, because there's a deception inherent to all existence, which is inherent not as a bad thing. It's, how can you trust someone? You remember the cynic episode, we were I'm looking for an honest man. Well, no, dishonesty is a valuable part of who we are as people. Like, are you going to tell your wife that she looks fat in that? No, just tell her you love her and move on. Like, wisdom is
funny.
And it's funny. It's like, am I fat in this? And you're just like, what a situation she has put me in. This is ridiculous. I love it. But if you are not in love, if you're not doing the dance, you're just gonna be like, oh, that bitch. But that's the thing, is that you have this juxtaposition between the internal and the external, which makes it hilarious. He's kind of laid out. And this, you have this, the reality of what you are, versus the boulot, the show of what you are. Kind of referencing Orwell here. When you go into a restaurant, there's the front of the store, the boulot, the show, the song and dance, the here's the food, isn't it great? And then you have the reality of it, the kitchen, where it's just like toast is on the floor. It's like, put it on the plate then.
Yeah, the inspectors come and we have to do an extra cleaning this week just to dishonestly.
Yeah. Why are all these rum bottles full of apple juice? Like, these are things that I've actually seen in kitchens. And, it's like, don't come to, you see, and it's the difference, the reality and the external. The reality is that every single restaurant, no matter what, has mice, period. It's not something you can help. It's just, if they're in the show area, then it becomes a problem. And if they get too much, that's why, like, you have, pool-ins on speed dial with a lot of restaurants, even if they're clean.
If your business is to provide and produce food for people, chances are you're going to have a garbage bin that has waste food in it. So there's no way of escaping mice and other rodents or insects or anything like that from congregating around the area.
Right.
They'll invariably try and find a place to find more food, so they will get in the kitchen.
So,
but what's funny to me is, like, it's the Shakespearean tragedy of it. It's how much effort and emphasis we put into preventing something, and then having it fall apart just by accident because the universe would prefer to be chaotic than
the
not.
The more effort you put into stopping it, the more it becomes a problem.
Yeah. That to me is what's hilarious. It's not the fact that people have mice and, rodent turds in their food and stuff. Like, that's not funny. But what is funny is how hard we try to prevent it and how much we show how clean it is when it's really not.
So this shows up now when you're making fun of yourself, this comes from a position of, self-honesty and confidence. So you can make, oh man, I fell down and my face went in right into the snow and now my face is all cut up and freezing. You aren't worried about how you're seeing. You're more like, look at what happened. Isn't that crazy? And this is an inherent position of comfort with oneself. And this is healthy. You make, you realize the, inherent ridiculousness of your situation, and you laugh at it. You laugh at what's happening to you because it's what was that? You just used an example, and I'm completely blanking on it. The one you just used. What,
of the garbage bin and the in the restaurant?
Yeah, sorry, my brain just did that thing where it blanks. So
no, it's all right. It's an ADD thing.
So yeah, okay, sorry, I remember. So, and you said this well, the more you push against it, the more it becomes even more ridiculous and tragic. And when you do that, so this is kind of like that idea of, Zen, Tao, the flow, which is a really good way of putting it. And if you even want to go, like, it does show up in the West.
Yeah, in physics, it's a second law of thermodynamics, essentially.
Yeah.
It's just entropy.
And what happens is, if you can't handle that, people won't, people gravitate towards people that can take it, that can take a hit well and laugh at it. And laughing is kind of that coping mechanism, but I make it sound like, oh, you're just coping with the tragedy of life. Why can't you just be happy? It's like, no. Life is the coping. There is no baseline of happiness. I'm sorry. There isn't one. That moment that you're happy isn't going to be the norm in your life. The contentment should be the goal. But within that contentment, you're gonna lose that contentment. And you have to laugh at when things head south. Because if you don't, that hell will eat you alive. And you can see it. People that resort to and try to laugh at it, and then they get defensive or they become malicious and they lash out. These are people that are not handling that life, where they're not dancing very well. So what we can do with this, well, I think I actually want to keep going on this for a second. I know I'm laboring it a bit, but it's important because you need, because, and this is why I'm saying you need to laugh about things, because Alan Watts would say something like, God is making fun of us. Now, whatever conception you have about God, Buddha, whatever, some divine being, something that is more than us or a creator, whatever it is, the way it seems to us, the way we've been created and the way the universe has been set up, either naturally or not, doesn't matter. Whoever did it is telling a joke. The universe itself is a joke. And if it's actually pretty funny.
Well, think of like the gruesomeness of death, like how horrible and terrible it is for any animal or plant to be killed. Mm-hmm. And like for that to be a necessary component of not only evolution, but like a daily practice for animals to consume other living things.
Right.
That's kind of hilarious in an ironic sense.
Well, and take something like racism, for example. And this is kind of something, you have racist jokes and you have baby jokes and stuff like that. Now, racism itself is inherently ridiculous, which is what makes racial jokes this kind of guilty pleasure of most of humanity, because they're just like, well, what did this type of person say to that type of person? They're like, stereotypes. But there's enough truth in them because, Italian people do this. I thought it was a stereotype until I went to Italy and we turned on the news and this woman's just like, and she's rolling it off her hand. I'm just like, oh, okay, that's real. This is funny. So the stereotype isn't just a stereotype. But when the more ridiculous stereotype is said in seriousness, like think the Ku Klux Klan, something like that, the way they talk about black people, it's so ridiculous. And the fact that they're honest about it makes it hilarious. You can laugh at those people because because it's stupid.
And that's an instance where malicious laughter might be appropriate because they're doing it with the intent to harm other people. So there's really no offense to take if you start maliciously laughing at the KKK for their silly little hats and their burning of crosses and their little gatherings and their little
because you're like, oh, you're serious. Like, that meme, like, you're serious.
Yeah, they're basically a meme.
It's the same thing with like the flat earthers, who I don't even want to talk about because I'm just bored with that.
Oh, there's so many. Like, what's his name? Alex Jones. Anything that guy says, from like nutrition to God,
I will tune into Alex Jones just to watch the train wreck. Like,
it's so absurd. Everything that comes out of that
talking
man's mouth.
Alex Jones. Heck, sign me up. But like that's the thing, because we know that person is going to do something absurd. And so we watch it and he's living his life and there's honesty with regard to it, because there's that honesty and we can see the juxtaposition between, the inside and the outside, and he's letting himself be out there. We have this comedy gold sitting there, and we see in Alex Jones, God making fun of us. Oh, you're trying to live a perfectly rational and reasonable life of,
avoiding lizard people.
It's like, here's a guy that believes in lizard people. You have to live with that man. In fact, he is representative of a larger group, one of whom lives next door. Another one of whom is your landlord. Have fun.
Another is your uncle.
Well, my ex-landlord literally was like accidentally texting us being like, the new world order is coming. Blah, blah. COVID is God's punishment for, Pornhub or something.
My uncle's exactly the same way, like running off to the woods and I'm going to save everybody by being in the boonies.
Yeah.
Like my gold bars are going to be worth something when the economy explodes
they will,
and nobody has any cash.
Who's
going to be able to buy your gold bars?
And also, like,
if there's no cash, then there's no cash. It's just absurd.
So we have this. So life, and I know I can hear everyone talking, but life is. What about the children? Why don't someone please think of the children? children are ridiculous, you're taking them too seriously. Yes, you do have to be responsible. Yeah, obviously. But within that responsibility, you can laugh at things. And this is laughing at yourself. And if you take yourself too seriously, you will lead a life of no joy. All you moon-faced assassins of joy out there, look at yourself in the mirror and be okay with it.
I think that's what's really crucial too about like our own laughing at ourselves. Like the reason why Alex Jones is so funny is because we see our own propensities in, like we don't necessarily believe in the same things as ridiculously, but we know that inherently in us is the potential to be like him.
Well,
and I think that's why it's kind of like laughing at ourselves when we see these ridiculous.
And that's why
absurdities.
We like stand-up comedians, because it's this person that goes up there and they tell you a story or a bunch of stories, and they weave them together, and they play with the absurdity, they play with the reality, they play with honesty, they play with all these things. But the inherent thing of it is that we can empathize very strongly with everything they're saying. Oh, there's a middle-aged white guy up there. And then, you look in the audience and they'll show like, black women and, an Asian guy and all these other groups, and they're laughing their butts off. Why? Because racism, because these experiences cross racial boundaries. We can all experience these things because, being human is in itself part of, we're all universally human together. And I know that's a weird concept nowadays. We live in clown world, but the fact that we can empathize, you see someone, a rich black guy walk up onto the stage and you're just like, I don't have any identity in similarity with this guy. Then he starts talking, you're just like, I get it. And, I'm a lower middle class white guy, and I can laugh very, very hard at, woman that goes up there, man, all these different types of people from different backgrounds, because there's an element of me in each one of them, like you said. And because of that, we share in this world in the same way that, we're all trying to do the same dance, and we're all stumbling the entire time in different ways. And sometimes, well, here's how I stumbled. And then we're like, oh boy. And then we want to tell our story. And when we tell our story, though, we're sharing in our own misfortune. Mm-hmm. Like when we see somebody get hit in the balls, it's not that we enjoy getting hit in the balls. It's that it's so painful that it's hilarious to see. And it's almost comforting to know that someone gets it. And someone's like, oh man, that guy kicked me in the balls. And it's like, oh, here's a video of someone getting kicked in the balls. And you're like, I'm not alone.
Yeah, the commiserating factor is almost like a social connection between us and whoever gets hurt.
Mm-hmm. And so you can laugh at it then. You see, it's just like, oh, it doesn't become it stops being the pain that you're feeling from the foot hitting, your skin there, or your organs. It goes from being the pain itself to the abstract notion of getting kicked in the balls. And that makes it funny. You can, you're divesting yourself from it. You can remember the pain. Well, that's kind of a weird thing humans do. And you can stop taking it seriously, and you don't internalize it like a lot of kids nowadays are being told. Something bad happens to you, internalize it. Your parents get a divorce, internalize it. You bottle that up, and they're saying, well, you have to let it out and cry. It's like, because, you have to, you have to Munchausen all your, all your pain and trauma. People are now getting, because we're not laughing at it, you start getting, more trauma. You start getting more PTSD because people they're just internalizing every stubbed toe and every imagined slight. The waitress comes up, what do you want? She's having a bad day. And all of a sudden you think that she's making some comment about you, and you internalize that, people, and you start getting paranoid because you can't just laugh at the fact that you got offended by a waitress having a bad day.
Exactly.
She knows about my podcast and doesn't like it. Oh, what a Like, no.
It's really worth highlighting too, because like if you just constantly repress things and the only outlet you have is to cry, and you can only cry in certain situations and when things are really intense enough to cry about them, right? You're creating pent-up traumas by not being able to have a sense of humor. Like, instead of waiting until it gets to the point where you burst and your eyes start flooding all over you and you're sniveling everywhere, like having a regular set of humor approaches towards all of these negative aspects to your life and interactions and stuff like that. Like, to me, it's preventative maintenance, basically, for your psychology, for your psyche. To be able to laugh at yourself when you're encountering these situations where you feel offended by somebody's passive aggressiveness or some completely irrelevant or inconsequential detail, like you were saying, the server's not smiling or whatever, and then transposing that into all these like catastrophized, inflamed instances of people hating you and the world being against you and like self-loathing, like that all stems from repression, I think. When you try and swallow all these hardships and don't become just loose to them.
Well, that's the problem with the stoic individual. The stoic individual will, age 3 times faster than the rest of us. Like, and you can't do it. Now, as a weird aside, and my brother-in-law will recognize this pretty clearly. For example, I guess would be a really good example that I remember would be Soviet humor. Now, you imagine the Soviet Union and how bitter and miserable it was. But one of the the only things to come out of the Soviet Union was some of these jokes. Because what happened was Soviet Union humor is actually brilliant. So, for example, how do you deal with mice in the Kremlin? Put a sign saying collective farm. Half the mice will starve and the rest will run away. So,
it would be really funny if you had 2 comedians, one from Germany and one from Russia.
Yeah. Well,
the Soviet.
Here's one. Comrade Brezhnev, is it true that you collect political jokes? And he says, yes. And how many have you collected so far? 3.5 labor camps. And so, is it hard to be in the gulag? Only for the first 10 years. Like, this is one of the hardest places. Like, humanity created for itself this hell on earth in East Germany and the Soviet Union, and even in that, in the place where your children hear you mumble something, they think you said they don't like something that you did to them, you gave them a spanking or something, and then all of a sudden you're in Siberia because you yawned weird and your son said you said something about Stalin. Okay, so that's pretty messed up. But like, even within all this stuff, and if you read some stuff like the Gulag Archipelago, you will see the depravity of it. But even within all of this, there's humor coming through. It's dark, it's horrible, but these jokes that you can find, there's an entire list of them on Wikipedia.
I really think that's what made Dostoevsky so brilliant, is like when you listen to his dialogue in books like The Idiot is phenomenally funny. Just the way that the people are behaving as if they're not.
This guy, he's literally Jesus. Well, he's not literally Jesus. He's pretty much just Jesus. And he goes into Russia during the Tsarist period, and he's like, goes around telling people wisdom, and everyone's like, nah, you're an idiot. It's like this. And they, get these like, sophists telling everyone what they telling this guy who's literally the best guy in all of Russia, how things are and what it is to be a good man. And he's just sitting there politely being like, I see your point, because he's just the best guy ever. And
but even in Pride and Prejudice, like all of it's, or no, not that one. What was the one where the guy is marrying the girl but she's into somebody else?
Jesus. That's like half of Victorian literature, though, too. I did just read Pride and Prejudice.
That one especially. The dialogue is so funny. because like the girl doesn't even like him, but he wants to marry her, and she keeps cheating on him, and she's like, oh, but I'll never do it again, but I love him so much, and she's telling her husband how much she loves this other person. It's so weird.
Yeah, and there's you're sitting there and you're laughing at, and one of the things I find really interesting is that when it comes to literature, and you read stuff like Shakespeare or the Three Musketeers or something like Alexander Dumas, where people will approach it, they'll approach Shakespeare like, Shakespeare is this wonderfully, intellectual pursuit. It's like, well, yeah, but like scene 2, act 1 is just a guy telling knock knock jokes at the gates of hell. Like, that's literally it. And like the Three Musketeers is like, if you read it seriously, it's going to be a bad book. You're going to have a bad time. You have to read it as if it's pretty much like a modern day comedy movie. It's just one absurd thing after another. There's sword fights in the streets. There's like, oh, I bet you I can't take that hill and stay out and hold it for an entire day. And then they walk up there, pretend that they're fighting, and then just have a picnic in this fortress that no one's attacking, and come down the next day being like, oh man, what a battle. Like, and then the Cardinal Richelieu's down at the bottom being like, oh, musketeers. Like, it's a comedy. You're allowed to read these things as comedy. People had sense of humors before, and if you're just going to take them seriously, like, and this is the conceit of the intellectual, where it's like, oh, I'm a big fluffy intellectual, and everyone needs to think I'm smart. I need to take everything and deconstruct everything and have an answer for everything. It's just like, I'm kind of guilty of that, but
well, that's why it's funny, because we all recognize this in ourselves. The book I was thinking of, I found, is Humiliated and Insulted. It's one of my favorites from Dostoevsky.
One of the ones I haven't read. I also haven't read Brothers Karamazov. I'm sorry. I think that's probably
too
next.
Long.
But
he does another Jesus thing in that one too, because one of the guys is in jail, and he starts telling a story about what if Jesus were in jail or something like that. It was really confusing.
Yeah. Well,
well, for me, because I don't read, but
they're good on audiobook.
But I think it's crucial that you pointed that out, though. The relationship between ourselves, the empathic connection between like our responsiveness towards offensive humor that comedians might make, like sexist and racist jokes, but within a setting where it's supposed to be funny and not offensive, so it's okay. But if you just walk out on the street and start telling, a white cop that he's a hunky pig, like, you're going to get a different response from the person, because the intent is there to do harm with the joke. Whereas,
go on.
Oh, sorry, I was just getting into the time and place.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, because that does come into time and place. Because, like, cop pulls you over, and he opens up, knocks on your window or something, and you go, who's there? And then he shoots you because you're an asshole. But as we laugh. Yeah, as we laugh. But this is something that a lot of these professions also do very well. These professions that deal with mortality quite a lot. They tell jokes, but there's also time and place. You think of a soldier, and they're standing on parade. If you if you're in Winnipeg, go to like a cenotaph on Remembrance Day, and you'll see this. You'll see this very clearly. Or you go to like the armories, and then one thing I noticed: you go to the ceremony. They're all standing at attention. They're all in their finest DEUs, which is our like their dress uniform. They're standing at attention, very serious. Very like yelling. Everything is in its order. Everyone's paying respect. Everyone's being solemn, because that's important. Remembrance Day is probably one of the most important holidays we have right now. We should do a thing on that. But
yeah, we absolutely should, actually.
But one of the things that happens if you watch them, the CO will yell out his command. Dismissed, they'll all turn to the right or left, I can't remember, it's been a while, and they march off, and then you see them just their shoulders just kind of go down a bit, and they just kind of stretch, some of them, and they start telling jokes instantly. Oh man, do you see the blah, blah, blah? And then what you can do is you follow them to the mess. And the mess is where they drink, and watch what they do. And they will instantly start singing songs, and not the type of songs that you want your children to hear. They'll start telling, stories about, stuff in the field. They'll start doing and being people, and they'll make fun of what's going on because they are engaging in what we've been talking about here. And you can see this in any, a paramedic. It's like they use all those, filthy acronyms that they got caught doing. But then, when it becomes time to do the work, they do it. So the thing of it is that you should be able to switch this on a dime. Well, today is a serious day. No, not all day. Like, you should be able to be like, okay, like even right now, I'm trying to explain what I'm trying to, so I'm serious. But then in 10 seconds or in like half a word, I could turn it around and tell a joke. That's kind of what I mean by time and place. Not like this entire situation is serious. No, it changes. You turn around to one person, you're like, hey, I need those, cover letters for those TPS reports. And you turn around to the next guy and be like, can you believe we have to put cover letters on our TPS reports?
And then the other guy says, like, I got to take the printer for a walk.
Yeah. It's like, yeah. And it's situational, but we kind of aren't socializing if your kids are on Zoom school, they're not being socialized at all, in which socialized means like learning how to deal with people. And part of this is learning how, reading social cues. How much humor do I put in this? How much do I have to, pay attention? This is serious, pay attention. You shouldn't, after a while, when you're a kid, you just know, this is serious, pay attention. And
I think they overdo it as kids, though. Like, they want you to sit still all day at school and then sit still all day at church on Sundays. And then you have like organized sport where you have to focus and be like in training and then it's game time and you got to be very focused and serious when you're playing. Like, childhood now is very different from childhood when we were kids, where they just opened the door, let you out on the street and said, don't get hit by a car. And like one of the parents out of the 12 on the street would be looking.
Well, and I only got hit by a car once. But I'm not kidding.
But this structure is dissolving our ability to be fluidly humorous, I think.
Right. And it's like, you have to have nuance. Like, someone comes into your office and they say, hey, you got to see what's, this and that's happening. And they want to tell jokes. And you kind of give them that look like, you know what? I'm going to delay my gratification. Give me 5 minutes and I'll come out and be an idiot with you. That kind of thing. And then if they're emotionally mature, they'll read that and be like, oh, okay, I get it. And they'll maybe try again later, and they'll, poke and prod, see like, can we have fun now? And like, you'll have fun.
There's always that asshole that just sits there and pokes.
Right. That's the emotionally mature guy. But someone will be like, hey, I want to tell you the joke. I want to tell you the thing. But then then the jovial, the fun will last maybe 10, 13 seconds. And that's all he wanted. And then he'll walk off because, it's like, I got to make fun of this thing right now. And then, no, I'm working. Well, it'll take a second. And then that's the thing. That's kind of what I mean by time and place. You have to go with that flow. You have to learn the dance. And the dance is, I'm serious right now. I'm very serious right now. I am focusing all my attention on this thing. Oh, look at that. All right, back to work. And then, you turn around to one person. They want to tell you about this, the tragedy that's happening in their life. They're not in a mood to joke. That's okay. You turn around to another guy and you're like, you can switch gears. And like, if you're in a bad mood, you are in a bad mood. You're going to be the one that people are going to be serious around. That's okay. But you have to also be okay with people laughing at you behind your back, which isn't a vice unless they're doing it out of malice, because if they're only laughing at you, malice. If they're laughing at you and themselves, because it's like, oh man, look at me. I'm a sour little puppy because, I didn't get the promotion. It's like,
but it's because they understand what it's like to be in a bad mood, having been in a bad mood before. They can laugh at your bad mood saying, oh, I remember yesterday when I was in a bad mood and I was, you know what I mean? Like, that type of humor needs to not be misinterpreted and and like blown up into this big social issue of like harassment. And you know, there's legitimate harassment out there.
Oh yeah.
Like there are so many tort claims right now in courts and human rights tribunals that are completely just dumb, in my opinion. Like they're a waste of resources. They're extremely taxing on people's emotional states, and like it sucks the joy out of life when you're mediating between people just because somebody wanted to chuckle because you were in a bad mood.
Well, and that kind of like you have something like Bill C-16, which legalizes anti-hate speech. So what happens is it makes saying something illegal. And this is what was happening in East Germany and the Soviet Union and right now in China. Deal with it, China. You're not allowed to argue against me.
I don't think they even get YouTube in China. Google was banned.
Yeah, good. Well, no, we want them to have. If you're in China and you're reading this, congrats on being brave enough to have a VPN. You are a hero.
Use Tor. We're going to talk about that one.
We should do security. A thing on Snowden's book because that was really interesting.
I didn't like his book, to be honest.
It was very autobiographical, but I liked I learned a lot.
He talks too much.
He's got nothing else to do. He's in Russia. Like, what would you do?
I'm not going to condone it. That's all. I like Snowden. Don't get me wrong. It's just I don't care about his story. I just care about what he did.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, but like I really did, you know, the stuff he was talking about. I learned a lot, and he did for anyway. I'm getting off topic. Don't get off topic. This is serious business, very serious. Okay, so what I'm talking about is essentially like if we regulate speech, then we are regulating what people can and can't say, and that goes. It's not about transgender issues. It's about, am I allowed to laugh about something stupid innocently and not have it be an actual crime? Like if I make a joke, oh man, you see like there's a, I don't know, random example. Someone changes the water at the water cooler and they've got a weird limp, and you imagine them stumbling down and being like, oh man, I'm soaking wet. And you just giggle to yourself, and you tell that joke to someone and they put you up for being ableist or something. And you're just like, why do I have a criminal record now? Like it's like you shouldn't be laughing at the expense of someone, but you can also imagine yourself falling down the stairs. And
as long as they're okay, it's funny. Really.
Well, and even if like you see someone like a soldier, it's like, oh man, it sucks. And we're all going to get blown to bits in 30 seconds. And then the government's going to have to come and, pick all our pieces up and probably stand us at attention because they're so low on budget or something. And they can't afford any more soldiers to guard their, whatever. And everyone's like, ha 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 ha. And someone's like, that's insensitive towards veterans. And you're just like, my eyes can't roll enough.
The eyes don't roll far enough.
So you get this, and then, they say, well, you're being insensitive, and therefore you're a bigot, and therefore we need to bring criminal charges against you? What?
And like, it's public record. Anyone can see it. So, like, it affects your business. It affects your personal relationships. Then people tied to you don't want to be connected to you because, like, you're accused of or alleged bigotry. Like,
well, it's like, well, you don't understand what it's like to be this identity group or that identity group. And that, to me, is absolute BS. Because one of the things that it seems like to me is that we are all just living a different tragedy. Like, oh, you're single for a long time. And I've been single for a long time, and that's kind of a tragedy. Then you get, then I got, a girlfriend, then I got married. And now I have to deal with an entirely different tragedy. Well, you have the privilege of having a wife. It's like, yeah, and it's great. But now I have to deal with the privilege of, the end of that. And that is just as terrifying as, dying alone. And to me, it's almost worse because
I'd say it's even more devastating.
And, you have this looming tragedy in your life, no matter what. And you have to laugh at it. You have to laugh back at the face of God, because if you don't, he's going to be disappointed in you. He wants you to laugh at him. He wants you to dance. He wants you to, have that attitude, because if you don't, you will not get through it. And that to me is like, I have to be able to, go up to my wife and be like, oh man, I'm off to get hit by a bus. Ha ha ha. And we're joking about this. It's so serious. But I'm able to have these jokes because we realize that this is a tragedy. But when you make light and get used to the tragedy, you can get on with the things that matter more than the tragedy. The love between you and your family. You have your kids. They're going to grow up. They're not going to be kids. They're not going to be those cute little bundles of joy anymore. They're going to grow up and become, jaded, cynical. Maybe they'll go off. Maybe they'll get killed. But to enjoy the now, you have to be able to make fun of the tragedy that is coming, or the tragedy that is there. And that is essential. And I know I'm saying this in a very serious voice, but I am gravely serious, because if you can't, the suffering gets magnified. And I don't want to go back to that, where a place where I couldn't laugh at things because I was just too angry at shit.
So what do you do about that then? It's like some people don't have a sense of humor. And I don't mean just like people who are mentally different. I don't want to say
someone who's just excessively gray, just in their aspect.
Well, I don't want to talk about medical conditions because that's separate. Like people with Asperger medical. Or autism or whatever, like they're not going to catch social nuances the same ways that we are. But I mean, like a general person who maybe just wasn't raised to laugh because they had such a strict upbringing. How do you suggest we go about engaging them in humor, like that back and forth fluidity, the dance of humor? How do we teach that dance?
You move out of Prussia. No, just kidding. But in
changing environment though, like
in all seriousness, one thing that helped me, because I went through a pretty bad time and around my early 20s, around like 2021, for reasons that I'm not going to get into because it's none of your business. Well, not you, but like you, the audience.
You just know I'll laugh at you. That's why.
It's not relevant. Whatever. All you need to know is that I was having a bad time and I had to relearn a bunch of stuff. It wasn't an injury. It was, you kind of have to go through a bit of a gauntlet, and you have to make a fool of yourself. You have to just, get used to reading people and get practiced at reading people. Go out there, tell jokes, have people be like, and get, practice, play with it. It's like a toy. You got to like learn how it works. But at the same time, the other aspect of it is that you can't read into people too much. You have to take people at face value as much as possible. And that helps you because, well, why did they say that? What do they mean by that? No. They said what they said. Take people at face value. They don't care enough to put on an elaborate ruse to fool you all the time, unless they're, a neurotic, toxic person. In that case, you can still take them at face value because you know exactly what they're actually saying. So take people, if someone says, hey, it's nice to see you, it might actually be that they mean it's nice to see you.
Wow.
If they're laughing at something you say, maybe they're not laughing at you maliciously. Maybe they're laughing at you because they care enough to pay attention to you and have enough tension to see the humor in, something that happened to you.
Same with like funny accents and stuff too. Like talking to people with different accents can be hilarious. And it's not because you're laughing at somebody for the way they talk. You're just laughing because the sound that they made was funny.
Oh, I used to work at
it's really that simple.
I worked at an Indian restaurant and we made fun of each other's accents all the time. I'd go and be like, Ghana, please. And they'd be like, look at me, I'm a white guy, blah, blah, blah. And like it's stupid because like, as long as I can understand you, like, please speak, English.
Yeah. That's the point.
And like, if you're not going to teach me some of your words, then like that. And it's just like, I'm not doing it to be racist against you. Like, I know a lot of Indian people. I know so many that I can't be racist against them because to me, they're just people with a different set of circumstances. And those circumstances are funny. Like, you are a white Canadian. Look at me. How about it? How much maple syrup you got stucked up? Ha 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 ha. It's like, lots. But yeah, they're right beside all my SKSs and, apology manuals. So.
But it is funny the way, like, people interact with each other not to harm each other. Like, for the most part, we're not out as sadists trying to hurt people, but the way we receive laughter is often from the point of view that people are out to get us, as if everybody cares so much about us they want to ruin our lives.
Well, that's
like, the fact of the matter is they don't care.
Like, that's literally, if you go in like, oh, everyone's out to get me, everyone's just like, oh, Jesus Christ, have like, are you like, okay?
Who cares that much about you and your experience of life? That
I keep thinking about was it Brett Weinstein and his idea of the the arch villain in your life, and he lays it out really neatly, where he's like, you have this person who you respect and you would want them to be right, but there's someone who you're in contention with, someone who is after the same thing, but you're in contention with constantly. And I like that idea, but like, that person isn't like maliciously out to get you. There's not someone like, at the office being like, you can, just saying bad things about you, because you will encounter those people who are actually out to get you. They're very few, but generally they're very poor quality humans. And you get someone like, Jocko Willings, just like put up with their shit, move past them. Like, they're not gonna advance if you work hard and just ignore their shit and move on with your life and put up with it while you're on their level. You will eventually move beyond their level and not have to deal with them.
And those people are generally people who don't laugh enough. Like, they don't understand what proper the dance is, like what proper humor is. They don't realize that there are funnier things, like puns are funnier than actually causing harm to people.
Right.
Like, language is funnier than any of that.
Yeah. And to me, that is, I kind of want to move on to something, but I think I'm having trouble having a segue, so I'm just going to do this meta segue. So one of the things about these people that I find interesting is that you can't force it either. So, you say, oh, those people that are just like, just if you're feeling down, just don't be happy. And it's just like, I want to smack those people.
And that's funny.
That's funny.
But
like, yeah, to gaff. But like, the thing, or it's just like, oh, just try laughing for 5 minutes every day. And I think Alan Watts said something like this, like, just laugh, just ha 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 ha. It's like, it feels so empty. I hate doing it. Like, I know I want to, like, laughter itself has to be honest. You have to honestly approach the absurdity of what's happening. It's just, it gets an acceptance of it. If you're just laughing, your body is doing the thing. And they say, well, no, if you smile, your body will think, you just, it's like putting the cart before the horse. And eventually the horse will start pushing the cart. It's like, is that how biology works? Do you have a PhD in this? Like, I'm sorry, I don't believe you.
Well, the human psychology does have that effect. Like, you can release endorphins by forcing it, but it's nowhere near the same thing. Like,
right.
You can make yourself less angry by forcing a smile, but that doesn't mean you're not angry anymore. Like, people just take the science to the extreme and say, oh, because it reduces negative feelings, then it must be positively correlative. And it's just not. Some people are so simple-minded you can convince themselves that they're happy just by smiling or saying a statement that they've printed on their mirror every morning. Yeah. And it's fine if you're that simple and that works. Why not? But that's not what we're hoping for. That's not an aspiration. That's like a Band-Aid for retardation.
So to me, it's a surrender. You have to almost surrender to the absurdity of it. Just be like, this is going to happen. It's like, you are not the stick up your butt. You're you. And you have to be honest with yourself and just laugh at it. Get over yourself. And then once you're doing that, then you can laugh at things.
I think that's probably why it works too, is because you feel ridiculous when you're smiling at yourself in the mirror and nobody else is around. Or when you force a laugh, you feel stupid. And then you're laughing at the ridiculousness of the action, not the actual smiling or mantra that you're saying in the mirror. Maybe that's why it works.
I do like that. My qualm with that is then why don't these charlatans just say that then? Why do they have to be all mystic and cryptic about it?
Well, the science does. It's just that people quote articles about science instead of reading the science itself.
Yeah, 10 ways to make yourself happy. Step 1, heroin. Like, well, that'll work, but
but it's cheaper than cocaine.
Yeah. So, yeah. Step 2, make money. Step 3, cocaine. But the
4, underpants.
Now, yeah.
The profit.
Jeez, I'm getting old.
A lot of references in this episode.
Yeah. Now, one of the other things I wanted to get into was self-deprecation can turn out to be a trap. So you make fun of yourself. It's like, haha, look, they're making, oh man, they're not stopping. Oh, well, they're still going. Oh, they're still making fun of themselves. Oh boy, this is depressing. Oh man, I lost all the humor. I'm going to go home and cry.
Yeah, it gets really sad really fast.
And that's usually, honestly, I remember doing this myself, and I now see it as a way, it's kind of like a dog whistle. It's like, oh, this person's not okay. Like, this person needs therapy, stat. And one of the things that I had to do when I was maturing was I had to learn to stop laughing or stop using myself as the punchline. Because, it's like, oh, I do that. Or it's just like, oh, look, it's a rock. It doesn't move just like me. And that's not humor. That's a begging for sympathy. That's begging for empathy. That's begging for someone help. That is a cry for help. That is not humor. There is a difference.
Or it's somebody who's just not funny and it's the only thing they know how to make jokes about.
Well, that's also true but the thing is that you need to move beyond it. You need to, because
that's like a learning process, though, learning to be funny about things outside of yourself, because it's easy when you know yourself.
Yeah.
There's so many things you can make fun of, but when you don't know anything about the world, it's really hard to make an Erdogan joke.
Yeah. It's like, that guy's a bit of a turkey. But
there's our puns.
Yeah. So to me, I remember doing that. That was a cry for help because I wanted company. I wanted people to talk to. And I remember I was dreadfully lonely at certain points. And what I had to do was I had to consciously make a choice not to make fun of myself in public. And it was hard because it was like the basis of all my humor. It's like, oh, Jordan's such an idiot. Look at him, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, don't put yourself down. And I've told this to my wife too, because it's so easy. You could just be like, oh, and it's the same inclination as, oh, I'm just this. I'm just a guy with a history major. I'm just a guy who reads history. No. That isn't just what you are. You are you. You're not just anything. And when you come from a place of self-deprecation, you can become that which you are deprecating.
But that's almost like taking the joke too seriously, right?
It is. That's exactly what it is.
When they actually believe that they're nothing more than this, that they create this type of simple joke. Whereas I would contend you can only have one thing to attribute to yourself if you are a bunch of other things. Like necessarily by nature, in order for you to be a history major, you also have to be literate. You have to be you're middle class so that you could go to school. You had to be in Canada so you weren't at war with people. You had to be in a free society, basically. Like, there are so many things that have to be part of you before you can even be that one thing.
Right.
And yourself to one thing is almost to say, my humanity is inconsequential to the actions that I take.
Well,
but if that's the case, then there's no such thing as human rights. You should have only rights for people who have certain accreditations for those rights. And that's just obviously wrong.
And one of the things that happens is you end up denigrating the actual effort you put in. It's like, oh, it doesn't matter. I'm not, I'm not a general, or I'm not a, university professor. I'm not something that you put on a pedestal unnecessarily. Yeah, I said it. That you're just you. It's like, yeah, you are just you, but like, don't beat your accomplishments. Don't make less of it because like you did it. Now, the thing of it is, well, then how do you exist in social situations if you don't have that ammo? Now, it's self-deprecation is cheap ammo. It's cheap. It's easy. It's easy to find. You just pull it out, you put it in, and you fire it off. You can find it anywhere. Don't use it unless it's really, really good timing, really good joke. You can, but use it as one of the tool, because one of the things that you want to do is you want to separate yourself from the actual humor. Now, okay, this is getting complicated, but what I'm saying is you're at work, you do something stupid, you go, instead of going like, oh, I did a stupid thing again, herp derp, I'm just pretty much Homer Simpson or something. No, you make fun of the action itself and not the person that made it, because when you make fun of the whole thing, everyone else can join in on your misery and turn it into humor. So, I remember working at Starbucks or something, and I'll make this up. You drop a picture of milk and it slams into the counter and the milk goes, you're like, oh, I screwed up. Laugh at me because I'm
so klutzy and that kind of thing.
Or you could make fun of the situation itself and everyone be like, yeah, I remember that. That was stupid. Whoa. And then they become part of the joke themselves. You are engaging more people in it when it becomes not about, you. It's becoming about you within the flow of everyone around you, because like, you are
spilled the milk, don't cry. And you can make a big scene out of it.
Yeah.
But like without it being part of you as being the klutzy dork, it's about the scene being spilt milk and, don't cry over spilled milk.
Yeah. So one of the advantages to this is that you're involving other people, and it's the where was I going to go with this? Is that
it also reduces the likelihood that other people are going to make jokes at your expense.
Right.
Like when they get used to hearing you be self-deprecating in your humor, they're going to tag on with their humor and also be deprecating of you.
Right.
Because that's the running joke you're creating.
Yeah. Sorry. Thank you for putting me back on track. You seem to have a good job of way of doing that. Yeah. And
I've known you since we were both Wii.
Wii. Nintendo Wii. Now, because one of the things about us as people, and one of the things that's also absurd about us, is that we are individuals. And we are individuals, but we're individuals within the structure of whatever structure we put ourselves in. So you're an individual in the structure of work. You're an individual in a family. You're an individual in a society. You're an individual in, a hockey team. Now, you do have to act as the best individual you can be, and you do have to embrace individualism, but that doesn't mean you have to be the solipsistic node of all creation. You are you're just one part of a whole. And this is one of the things that kind of Alan Watts emphasizes, that we don't, and the education and the Prussian education, especially that was happening in the 50s and 60s when he was in the 70s when he was talking, was that not so much 70s, he died in like 73, I think, but was that he emphasized the individual, yes, is an important part. It's the quantum of society is part of the web of a whole. You're only seeing one perspective of many perspectives. And so when you make yourself that solipsistic center of a joke, you are kind of cutting yourself off, and you're not being honest. You're not displaying that juxtaposition. You're only you're making fun of the out. Oh man, this is getting complicated. I'm sorry. Trying to bring everything together here. So you're making fun of so you're an individual in a system. And if you're working at work and you do something stupid and you make the joke about you, you're only making joke about the show, not the show in relation to the inside, the reality of it. And so when it's only about that, people can't empathize with it because it's about your problems. And so they can't bring what happened, the tragedy of your life, into the internal reality of who they are. And so the empathy just isn't there. And so you have that external show, internal reality, the truth of who you are. And this isn't a bad thing. This is just the way we are. I could spend all day trying to tell you what the true reality is, but that in itself would be a show. So autobiographies are a bit suspect. But
looking at you, Snowden.
I have very few biographies. I think I have like 2 biographies back here. But the
Churchill's was really good. Well,
yeah,
one of the 10 that have been done on him.
Yeah. And so what happens is, and that's kind of why I'm suspect of self-deprecating humor, is because you are separating yourself from everyone around you. And that is not what you're trying to do with that humor. You're asking for help. Please, I'm lonely. Please, I'm sad. Please, I'm a klutz. Forgive me for being who I am, instead of being like, ta-da! And so you just sit there and you laugh at it, instead of being like, this is typically what I am. Please have pity on me. Give me something that I don't yet deserve, which is...
But what we should be doing is learning how to laugh at the pitiful nature of that type of humor. Like, if that's all we know, like, as a person who does self-deprecating humor on a regular basis, they should be able to also say, why can't I think of anything funnier than just my own screw-ups? Like, that
Maybe you should get out more.
Yeah, that's a tragedy. I should do more in my life so I have more things to talk about. Like, it could be or like you said, if it's like a cry for help or some type of communication of lacking community or companionship, rather than piling on top of that, what we should be doing is recognizing that person needs some companionship and showing compassion.
Yeah,
like, we should all be more aware of people who suck at making jokes. People
like,
with terrible humor need help being funny.
Yeah, and like help them with social cues. Like when I said you need to get out more, I said it like I made a
with
show.
Your eyes all bug out.
And I'm like, I did the badum-tish face, but like, even if I'm doing it, like if I'm testing someone new, like at work or something, and you'll give them a bit of a ribbing, and you'll have this like, yeah, I don't think we're going to keep you here very long. And then they, there's subtle signs on their face and in their manner that mean like, oh, they're just testing me. And, everyone's sitting there being like, how's he going to handle it? How are they going to handle it? How is they going to handle this ribbing? And they're disappointed if you don't take the joke. They're like, if you just be like, my boss is such a jerk, he's always, making fun of me. It's like everyone at your job is just kind of like, come on, Matt.
Yeah, like shoot back. We're trying to have fun here, and you're just killing it.
For like when I worked at a paint store for 3 months on my probation, they were essentially telling me, it's like, oh, we're just probably going to make you seasonal. You're not getting the job. Don't even bother about like looking for an apartment. But 3 months of this, and they brought me into the office at the end of your probation, being like, yeah, we're giving you a raise. It's just like assholes.
But it changes everything about like your impression going into work, your interactions with your customers, like the things you remember from just the work experience itself. That what you gain from your employment is not just the productivity you contribute and the money you get in a paycheck. It's also the experience you're gaining while you're producing, while you're laboring.
And they need to know if they can trust you. And this is even more so in the mortality professions. A doctor, are you going to be good? He turns to his nurse and he goes, are you going to be good once I cut this person open? And it's just like, I've seen the inside before. I've seen them all. It's like, awesome, we're good. But if they go, what do you mean? Of course I'm going to be good with it. It's like, I'm going to need to pay.
Yeah, they get all defensive and
or
shit.
they go, oh, I don't know. Do you think I'm up to it? Or they get like, are you sure? I don't know if I'm okay with this. It's like, that sounds like a you motivation or a you like confidence problem. If you're a nurse, you've gone through nurse training, you've been there, you've done like tons of I don't know, what do you call them, like internships or whatever they do, practicums.
Yeah, the practicum.
And you've done a bunch of those. You got like hundreds of hours doing this stuff. Act like it. And
be mature. Like if you're not mature enough to handle yourself in a social situation, it's really hard to trust you with like scalpels and sanitizing surgery equipment.
Like I see a lot of students these days who aren't willing to put themselves forward because they're just afraid of talking and afraid of screwing up, and that hamstrings them. And then you have a bunch of other students who I've met who are begging, like they're like, yo, you're going too hard on us, you're not giving us enough chance, you didn't tell us how many questions there'd be on the test, and blah blah blah. It's like, is there no joy in your life? Are you okay? Because university is supposed to be brutally hard, and if it's easy, well, either you're in the wrong program or you already know the stuff and you have to take your accreditation in this country, or they're going easy on you. And
or it's a fake university.
Well, I remember at U of M, they had a big thing in the history department saying, it's like, how can we better help you guys? And I was just like, you need to go harder on us. You need to treat us like, you need to actually force us to grow by like not putting up with our shit. And then everyone around the table is like, you have the literal communists saying like, we need to get rid of the administration. You have everyone being like, you need to keep us more informed at all times. It's like, what? No, we need our job. Their job is to teach us. Our job is to learn and to do the work so that we learn. And
why aren't we teaching like proper humor health? Like that should be part of mental and physical health, and part of our education system should be teaching us how to handle stress and anxiety with humor. How to put ourselves and present ourselves in a professional manner, but still be able to be human and have fun and smile and not just have just interactions that are regimented and strictly scripted.
I think a lot of it, like you get the Protestant work ethic, like all work, no play, but all work and no play makes Jordan a dull boy.
It makes us less productive too.
But yeah, it does.
Measure that. Or we can measure happy workplaces being more productive than unhappy ones.
And like you got also like the Prussian model of education, sit down, sit up, left, right, do your math. But then in addition to that, you get when someone complains, a lot of times nowadays, they are mollified or pandered to. It's like, oh, I think this is too hard. You need to make it easy on us. And they'll be like, oh, yes, we do need to make that easier for you. We're so sorry it was hard.
Sorry.
Yeah. And it's like, no, like the professors and the teachers and the authorities need to learn honestly how to be like, no, sit down and shut up. Like,
and then laugh at it.
Be like, can you believe my students were like, I can't handle a 3-hour written exam. Like,
I remember even in school though, when I was obnoxious or loud, my teacher was like, no other kids, they would tell me like, Chris, shut up. Like absolutely straight.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because I wasn't hurt by it, because they told me so many times to not be loud in class.
Right.
We both could laugh and it's okay.
Well, I remember one of my favorite professors, so Professor Churchill. I'm not against name dropping this guy because he was one of my favorites. And we'd give each other a hard time all the time. And I remember I was able to just, rip on him, and he'd be, Jordan, shut the heck up. And people would be like, can he say that to a student? It's like, of course he can. He's a professor. He's an authority here.
You get like internal affairs from the university come by like, Jordan, were you traumatized by this? Let's open a case and start a grievance.
Like, that's Churchill. He does that. He's like, he's that kind of guy. And people like saying, like the other classmates were like, I remember one of the time where the other classmates were just sitting there being like, oh, he's such a jerk. I hate him. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you guys just need to know that that's Professor Churchill. And at the end of the course, he's like, Jordan, I like you. I can say whatever I want. It's just water off a duck's back. And I'm like, got you. I think
that's important in socializing us, like you and me specifically, because we're an active type of learner. Let's just put it that way. So we engage in class, and sometimes that's disruptive. But in order to socialize people like us, you need to have a sense of humor. You have to be able to say like something that should sound offensive if it was just written on a transcript. but like with verbal body language and nonverbal communication, we can tell that it's meant, okay, I need to shut up, but it's not as serious as it sounded. It was just
right.
It was
Well, I remember I had one. It was like 18th century English history, and I was the only person in that class that talked. It was a class of like 12, and I would go and I'd be like, here's what I thought about the readings, blah, 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 because no one else would talk. And then I'd be like, I look around being like, critic, please,
but I'm
someone
for this shit. So like, I'm going to learn as much. If you don't want to talk, I'm going to monopolize.
I saw like the pain in the professor, and he would like end class after I said my piece. And I was like, the f is going on? Why aren't these people like, I'm not that intimidating, but like they're sitting there solemn and like, please, oh priest of the university, please impart your divine knowledge onto me. It's like, no, it's an active process for everybody.
Let me absorb wisdom.
Like there are some people who just like, I'm just going to stay in my corner and do my research. And I guess that's okay. But I learned like, I'm extroverted, but I'm not 100% extroverted. I'm definitely, there are times where I'm just like, I'm going to go find a corner and read or do something away from people. And what I learned is that I learned more and better when I attacked the material. And people would just get offended. And I was just like, the material isn't scripture. And we have this idea that like we're in church now all the time, where we're like, we always have to talk about grave matters and we always have to fix the planet and the this and that. And it's just like, no, we have to live our lives.
Yeah. Or Jordan, your opinion's wrong because that's not what it said in the readings.
Well, like, because you're white, so you're not allowed to talk. It's like, fuck you. It's like people were
the readings are there to have a subject to discuss. It's not there so that you memorize it and just like everybody regurgitate what it was already written.
Right. And if we were to do that, then they would have actually assigned Michel Foucault instead of not and always talking about him. You know, like, I'm sorry, that's not how learning works. We are here in a high level discussing things, and we are trying to be at least a little original. And that means we have to put ourselves out there. And that means we have to have, bringing it back, a sense of humor. And this isn't just university. This is all facets. If you're learning, have a sense of humor, because the first 3 weeks of any job are going to be like, what the heck am I doing? And if you can't laugh at yourself, you're going to give yourself an aneurysm.
Yeah.
Like,
and anything professional, not like, I mean, it's most obvious in the mortality professions, as you put it, which I like morticians and paramedics and surgeons and all that. But every profession, even if you don't need a degree for it, you still get specialized the longer you're doing it. No matter what profession or job you're doing, you should always have an element, like a sense of humor about the job. You don't necessarily have to make jokes in your writ of summons when you're writing like legal documents, but you should be able to pass it over to somebody and make a joke about their dog filing it. Like that shouldn't hurt anybody. And making those types of just moderate slights on serious matters, that levity, bringing levity to every situation, I think is really important, because that's what is healthy for us, both mentally and physically. Like stress is a huge component to our physical health, and long-term, especially repeated stressful events. So having 5 seconds, 13 seconds, 20 seconds of just a quick ha here and there between puns and even if you have to, self-deprecation, but like having that break up all the seriousness of your day has a tremendous long-term effect on your life. Yeah.
And I don't know, I think that's probably a good place to put this down.
Neat little bow.
I guess I could end with a bit of a story.
Yeah, give her.
For once. So a couple days ago, I guess a joke. A couple days ago, EPCOR, so the water people come up. They're building a house in the backyard, and what happens is a guy in a jumpsuit and a hard hat comes up, knocks on the door. I look out, and I'm tired. I'm just got up. It's like 8 a.m. He's like, "Oh, I'm here about the water." And I look at him, and I'm tired, and I just kind of take a sip, and I go, "Yeah, we've got lots." And I kind of just walk in. And my wife just comes up, and she's just like, "What? Why did you tell him that?" It's like, "Oh, he's like, the water's going to be off for 30 minutes. And it's just like, well, he should have said that in the first place. So, and he didn't expect it. He didn't know what to do. I thought it was hilarious, but I don't know.
But that little bit of surprise probably lightened up his day. So, he probably goes door to door, 30 doors, has to knock and say the same thing on every door. At least on this one door, he snapped back to, oh yeah, I'm a human being, and this is just autonomous work that a robot could do one day. But like, you bring them back to reality with it, and that's the part of life that we're actually experiencing, is those moments of reality where we can joke about something unexpected, or when we find something funny because it sounds silly. I think those moments are really important and often understated.
Yeah. So if you're watching, thank you for tuning in. If for today, if you've gotten to this point, tell us a funny anecdote in the comments, something where you didn't take life seriously, and we'll all have a laugh. Make sure to, like and subscribe too, and tell your friends, because the more absurdity we have down in those comments, the better and more fun it'll be. So
peace and love, everyone.
See you guys.
Be well. Thanks for watching.